Indeed, it's a privilege to be saved by the Lord Jesus Christ.
Something is happening to me. Very strong sense of peace.
I have been warned that I would not return to court for that case.
My healing was actually complete.
That God heals us in different ways. He can heal divinely, He can heal through surgery, through drugs and all that.
Then I knew that it was my set time. When I came back, I had more than enough.
In the contract, they actually specified how much we'll get. It was exactly the amount I asked of God the December before.
Real life stories of what God has done and continues to do. Wonderful acts of deliverance, salvation, healing, and blessings.
And because the Lord is my shepherd, I shall never want every day. Testimonies everywhere. See the word is working, and I'm so full of praise. In the morning, testimonies.
Hello, what a glorious day. A day to celebrate God's goodness. Can you imagine how it must feel to be thankful for something and yet not know whom to thank? That, I'm told, is a dilemma an atheist must face. Well, thank God we are thankful and we know who to be grateful towards. Well, why don't you join us today as we share God's goodness in the lives of His own in A Testimony a Day.
In the hospital, that's what I could remember. I was always falling sick. Always falling sick. Any small thing, I'm in the hospital. And from my siblings, I was out of all my siblings. I stood out. There was something wrong. Then I couldn't comprehend what was wrong, but I knew I was wrong. Something was wrong with me. Later, I got to know that I had a blood deficiency that is called sickle cell anemia, which is popularly known here as being a sickler.
The doctors told Idou's parents that he wasn't going to last till his 3rd birthday and advised them to be prepared. However, they didn't give up. Growing up was tough for ID, that being the shortened form of Idou, a name he was given in Yoruba culture to signify the fact that he was born immediately after a set of twins. Malaria was ID's worst illness. A single mosquito bite would land him in hospital.
You know, you can't go out to play like your friends. You can't stay out. You can't dance under the rain like all the other kids. You can't be rough like other kids. Because when you do such, it comes back and bites you, you know, in the form of crisis.
This led to several setbacks at school.
It was difficult, you know. I remember even when I was in school and starting school, in school, I can't remember primary 1, primary 2. It was during exam period I usually fall sick, and it used to be very serious. As a result of this, I repeated a class or two, like 2 times, and it was quite disheartening, you know. Then, as I grew older, I in my mind I blamed my parents. I was like, why would they do such thing to me? You know, that because it was saddening because I couldn't do things other children could do. When we are in crisis, that is, the pain is so excruciating that it feels like 4 big tractors are holding your arms and your leg, and they are all pulling in 4 different directions, and you have a grinder, a giant stone grinding all your joints. The pain is so much that for most days you won't be able to sleep. For most days you cannot, you are like you're wishing to die.
During one particular episode in his 20s, he was hospitalized for 6 months. This was followed by 2 to 3 weeks of therapy to enable him regain the use of his legs, which had become weakened.
The sedative they were giving me, which was a very strong sedative. Normally, when I started using the sedative, it could last for like 2 days, 3 days before the pain starts. But because I got so used to the painkiller that I couldn't. Between an hour, my body got so used to it that within an hour, I could not. I would just be in pain for like. I would just be relieved for like an hour, and afterwards I'm back in pain. I got so bad that I had to beg the doctor to give me that pain, and the doctor was like, you know what, I'm not giving you anymore. If you have to die, please die, because if I continue giving you this drug, you will die eventually, so I'm not giving it to you. I grew up as a Muslim. My parents are Muslim. One of my siblings is still Muslim, but the rest of us are Christians now.
Idewu's experience of salvation was a major turning point in his life.
I had a lot of Christian friends and even relatives.
He resented being preached to, until one day he met a Christian friend, and their conversation turned towards the spiritual.
We went to secondary school together, and he's one of my best friends. Our houses were so close together, and there was this evening, whenever there is no light, we go outside and just gist and talk until it's time to sleep.
That night, he went to sleep and had a frightening occurrence.
I had this feeling. I know most of us have had that feeling. I had this feeling, that pinned down feeling that I usually have, that you are conscious of your environment, but you can't move. You are stuck to the earth. I was stuck to the earth. I couldn't move. I could see what was happening around me, but I couldn't do anything about what was happening around me. And I was like, what is this? So I started trying to like force myself up, but it was not, I was not moving. I was like, okay, maybe by time it will wear off like it always usually does. But this day was different. It was totally different. As I thought to myself that, okay, after a while the feeling will wear off, I felt a hand. I did not see the hand, but I felt it physically. 2 hands. They grabbed me at my throat and they started pressing me down. I was like, what is this? This is not the usual thing that happens to me. So I felt, this doesn't make sense. But I was losing oxygen and I was like, if this thing comes out, I'm going to die. One thing that came to my mind at that point was my friend's preaching. It was just the only thing, it just crossed my mind. I was like, this guy that was so, that thing just came to my mind. I was like, okay, it won't do anything, I'm just saying it. Because I couldn't talk, because I couldn't move, I can't even scream out, nobody will hear me. From inside of me, I just screamed the name Jesus. From inside of me, I just screamed Jesus. At that particular moment, that second, I saw a shadow. Initially, I thought it was my mom, because usually when I'm in pain like that, she's the only person that listens, that comes out and, you know. I just saw a figure and I thought it was my mom. So I was like, thank God, mom is coming. Come and help me from this thing. The figure now came towards me. As soon as the figure got to my head, the pressure on my throat relieved me immediately, and the magnetic force stopped. So I was like, thank God. So I was like, thank God. I looked up, like, mommy, thank you. There was nobody there. I didn't see anybody. I was like, wow, what is this?
First thing in the morning, he called his sister, who was a Christian, and asked to go to church with her. During an altar call, he gave his life to Christ. And as he says, he has never turned back since.
I was like, if somebody that doesn't even know me, I don't know, that doesn't know me, that I've never related to, could save me, without me opening my mouth, just for me to call him with my mind, and he saved me. How much more will he save me if I could just be calling him every day? I started with being a sickler. Ever since I became Christian, it's been easier to cope with the illness. I can't remember the last time I felt ill. I can't remember the last time I had a crisis. My wife looks at me now like, are you serious? You know, because when it rains then, oh please God, I'm in Wala. One drop of rain on me, then the trouble has started. When I'm under AC like this, the trouble has started. And every time I want to have my bath, I had to use hot water. I can't remember the last time I used hot water. I can't remember the last time I was under a cold weather and I had issues. That is evidence that God is with you.
Idowu met his wife in late 2009 at church, and they got married in 2011. ID believes strongly in God's word about healing.
I remember that time after I became a Christian, I think that's when I knew that this blood deficiency will not kill me, because he said that I shall not die, but live and declare the works of the Lord in the land of the living.
God have really upgraded me. God have really upgraded me. But last year, some of the things I could not do, but by His grace today, now, I've been able to fulfill it. I have that contract that I'm doing now. Despite the job I'm doing, I still have other places that I touch my hands. I see improvements.
One afternoon, after I got back from work, I had this very bad headache. I thought it was something mild, but it got worse. And 2 days after, I went to see a colleague doctor at work, and I was asked to do an MRI. That is an imaging study of the brain, like an X-ray, but a more complex X-ray of the brain. And that revealed that I had a pituitary tumor. That is a tumor in my pituitary gland. And he said it was quite a large tumor.
Ireti Fajolu, a consultant pediatrician and a senior lecturer at the University of Lagos, is used to looking after others and not being in need of medical attention herself. Surely, her severe headaches could be nothing serious.
Of course, I was quite upset. I broke down crying. But he encouraged me and told me that it wasn't a malignant tumor, that is, it was not a cancer, that it was just a tumor that could be taken care of by surgery. But the thought of brain surgery scared me. Knowing all the complications that be associated with it, I didn't think I would go that line.
Dr. Ireti also consulted with an endocrinologist, a doctor specializing in hormones. It was thought that she needed surgery. Some drugs were prescribed in the meantime to see if they would help, and she took these for 3 months.
I went back for a second MRI.
Dr. Ireti was at crossroads. Should she go for surgery or trust God for divine healing?
I'd been praying and trusting God for divine healing. But somewhere along the line, another colleague of mine, who is also a Christian, who I spoke to, told me that God wanted to draw my attention to this tumor and for me to do something about it, rather than for me to continue living in fear.
She made contact with a surgeon in India. Surgery was to come at a very high cost.
I kept on trusting God for the finances, and somewhere along the line, God made a way, even for me to get the finance even to go. While I was preparing to go, a lot of things happened. I was still trusting God for divine healing.
One day at church, whilst her pastor was preaching, God had a word of encouragement for her.
In June in church, my pastor, just out of the blues, wasn't the message for the day. He just said something that God heals us in different ways, and that it's God himself that gave the doctors all the knowledge they know, all the drugs and everything that we know as medical professionals is given to us by God. And that he can heal divinely, he can heal through surgery, through drugs and all that. And that was what sort of settled me, that okay, I wasn't making a wrong decision by deciding to go for surgery.
It was a week to her travel date and still no visa. No date had been given for the visa interview.
I tried all efforts to get an Indian visa to no avail.
She decided to go to the embassy herself. She wasn't allowed in but was advised to log in from 12 midnight.
So my night vigil started. So every day for about 2 weeks before I was due to travel, I will go online and try till about 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. before I eventually go to sleep, all to no avail.
Fortunately, through the intervention of a friend of her husband, she was able to get her visa within 24 hours. Soon, she was on her way to India with her daughter.
So we went to India on Sunday. We arrived, everything was fine, we went safely. I got there and eventually I had the surgery done 2 days after I got there.
Alongside this physical battle for her health, Ireti had to deal with another kind of battle, that of the mind.
Before I went, all through my trip, I was scared and thinking of all sorts. And the devil has his way of bringing all these negative thoughts to your mind. Oh, what if you go and you don't come back? Oh, what if it's your corpse that is brought back? While I was preparing to go, an important dignitary in Nigeria was said to have been flown back from India dead. She had gone for some treatment and they brought her in dead. So all the thoughts kept on coming through my mind.
She held on to a word of encouragement from an elderly family friend. The same legs that take you out shall bring you back home, she had said.
About the surgery that I already knew, some of the things he was telling me about the complications, I sort of tuned off so that I won't listen to everything he had to say, not to even increase my fear. As I was getting into theatre, I was being taken to theatre, the anesthetist was going to put me to sleep and was telling me everything. Then I suddenly became afraid again, and I thought, oh, when I go to sleep, what if they make mistakes and I'm not awake to tell them, oh, don't do this, or don't forget this, or don't do that. Then this scripture came to my mind, Psalm 121, that he who watches over us never sleeps nor slumbers.
Battle won. The surgery was successful. Ireti remained for 7 days in bed without being allowed to even sit up.
Not allowed to get up, not even sit up in bed for 7 days, and after which all the dressings were removed, and in 10 days I was discharged from hospital. I got back home alive, safe and alive in Nigeria. I give God all the glory. The icing on the cake, when I was coming back from India, this was about the Ebola period. I didn't know there was Ebola in Nigeria, and while on the flight, a boy was sick on board. So the air hostess came to me. My daughter and I had exchanged our seats. They thought my daughter was the doctor, so they said, oh, doctor, please, we need your help. So my daughter looked at me, oh, no, it's my mom that is the doctor. So I asked them what the problem was. I was just recuperating from surgery and they needed me to help a sick boy on the plane. So I got up and I went to see this boy. I was able to help him out, not knowing that there was Ebola or anything. I just did all I needed to do. I touched him, trying to, pacify him and all that. When we got to Nigeria, they told us all to wait for the sick boy to be helped down. So all the health personnel came into the plane and they all had masks, and I was like, oh, what is wrong with Nigerians? This boy just has a chest infection or a chest problem. He's not infectious. So they took the boy down. So on the way home, I was looking at the newspapers and I saw, oh, Ebola in Nigeria. So I said, oh God, what if it was Ebola? And that was it. I started panicking again. I got home and I had this severe backache. And one of the symptoms of Ebola is arthralgia, that is pain. So I said, okay, it's Ebola. Of course, I wasn't thinking, because I can't just contact Ebola in less than 24 hours and already have symptoms. But I had to pray again, and thank God I didn't get Ebola. The boy did not have Ebola in the first place, but the devil still tried all his best to try and create fear. But what we are told is that fear is the opposite of faith. So if we are able to just hold on to God, He's able to do miracles in our lives. And I want to thank God for this opportunity that He has given me to share what He has been able to do in my life. I give Him all the glory.
Worship the Lord your God, and His blessing will be on your food and water. I will take away sickness from among you, and none will miscarry or be barren in your land, I will give you a full lifespan.
Hello, Ronke. Thank you for having me over today to share your testimony.
Thank you, Azinoma. Thanks for having me.
Yes, now you went to bed one day, a few years ago, just like any other night, to have your good 6, 7, or 8 hours of sleep.
Yes.
But it turned out to be quite an eventful night, didn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to tell us about that night and what happened afterwards?
Yes, it was. It was the night of the 1st of April, 2012. And my husband and I were in bed. My daughter was in her room as well. And we suddenly heard the door open. And it was dark. And we heard the door open. And we pretty much just got up at the same time. And we knew we had company.
3 flashlights shone on their faces. Ronke and her husband were tied up on the floor. The robbers searched their room but couldn't find what they were looking for. Ronke and her husband were threatened several times with death. The robbers said that they had heard that they had just come from the UK and that they had foreign exchange.
At some point, when my husband was being tied up, he was laying there. I think he must have been trying to get his hands untied, and then he successfully got his hand untied and opened the sliding door and started yelling and things like that. So they rushed to him and got him and said, "Oh, you think you're a man, you think you're a man," that all the people that is yelling at that, we've taken care of them. They really, really beat him up. He was badly beaten. And I was pleading with them not to continue with what they were doing. But they kept beating him up. At some point, they took a metal pole and they were striking his ankle. When they were beating him up, they tried to strike him on the head at some point when they tried to shove him down. He moved his head and the metal object hit the tile and that broke. So you can imagine if that had hit his head.
They ransacked everywhere. And then Ronke had the courage to offer to show them where everything was.
I said to him, I don't even know where the courage came from. I just said to him, if you let me get up, I would show you where everything is. And then he came and he untied my hands and or whoever, one of them untied my hands anyway. And I went and showed him where everything was. All my things were my jewelry, my husband's jewelry.
After sorting through the jewelry, watches, cufflinks and other possessions, the robbers cleared out everything they wanted.
They couldn't find whatever it is they were looking for, so their gang leader started to ask and saying, where is everything? Whilst I lay there, I can remember just saying my last prayer because I was so sure that that was it. And I was just praying there. I wasn't scared, but I was just praying where we were. And they were just saying all sorts of things and I could hear them going on, but my attention wasn't on that. My attention was more on if I die today, I better be going to heaven. So at some point, he was like, if he doesn't find what he's looking for, that we're going to die. They asked the guy to tie me back, one of the guys. So I lay there and he was going to tie my hands. And I can remember the man said, or the young lad said to me, he said, Madam, no vex. Madam, no vex. So at this point, I kind of like, how can an armed robber be saying Madam, no vex? So it just gave me this inclination that it was someone close to home in the area,
Ronke pleaded with the robbers not to go into her daughter's room. She didn't even want her to see them or know that anything had happened.
I just knelt down and said, please just, I don't even know what I said. I was pleading because I didn't want her to go to my daughter's room. I didn't want her to be hurt. I didn't want her to see any of this. And my daughter is very active. She doesn't even sleep in the daytime. She's not one of those. She's always active outdoors, doing a lot of things. So when she sleeps at night, she really sleeps. So it was one of those nights where she really slept. So they did enter the room. I know the guy went in and one of them went in and out, and I was just pleading that, please don't hurt her or do anything. But it was so pathetic because they took her games, they took everything, and I know she had a little wallet that had like maybe 200 naira or 300. I don't even know. It was not a significant amount of money, but they took that as well.
Ronke took the robbers from their home to their newly set up school a stone throw away. They took everything they wanted, laptops and other electronics, an endless list.
When we got to the school, we have secure doors and things like that, and they couldn't get in. And because they had wrestled that kind of door, when they came to our side, he was like, I'm not going to do this again, let's go back and look for the key. It was in hindsight, we noticed that they had tried to get in through the doors. It wasn't possible. They actually had to break a wall to actually get in. This was a newly set up school that had been planning for so many years, spent so much money, So they pretty much took everything electronic, anything, laptops, anything, so many things. The list is endless.
Ronke was taken back to the house, to her room where her husband was. At some point, Ronke was taken again downstairs to the living room and left for a while. She soon noticed it was getting brighter and there was nobody around.
Before this time, I had thrown an alarm out. We had some alarms and I had triggered some of them out. I know a number of the neighbors, when they came the following morning, said they heard it, they thought it was a car, they heard it, they thought it was X, Y, and Z. So that didn't work. As it got brighter, I noticed that there wasn't anybody anymore. So I ran upstairs and I went to check on my husband. I untied his hands and picked up my daughter. And then we went to a room and just locked ourselves in. So these guys left, and as soon as they left,
the whole ordeal lasted about 4 hours. In that time, despite Ronke trying to trigger off an alarm, the armed robbers had not only smoked and drunk, they had eaten and feasted, helping themselves to everything in their cupboards. The security men had been tied up. Everything had been well planned.
This Mopul, or whatever they call them, police guys, I don't know what they call them. I think that Mopul, they started shooting. That was quite comical. Just as they left, just when we didn't need them anymore, they started shooting and.
You see the movies.
Yeah. So they came, and we just when you're just not even grateful to see, because this was the wrong time to have come when we needed you.
How wonderful! God is working everywhere. Is He working in your life? Well, why don't you drop us a line? We'd love to hear from you. And would love you to join us next time when we meet again on A Testimony a Day. Until then, it's bye-bye.
I don't wanna stray from you. I don't